welcome to this video, where we'll be sewing the VENISE pattern together. This is a pattern for a small rectangular case, which can be used as a makeup case, a case for your pens or phone chargers and cables, for example. You can also imagine it as a small medicine case or a first aid kit for bandages. The VENISE case can easily be carried in a handbag or travel bag. It's quick to sew. Let's take a look at the technical specifications of this pattern. The format is 17 centimeters wide, 9 centimeters deep, and 9 centimeters high. There's a large 25 centimeters zipped opening that starts and finishes on the sides for optimum practicality. We've added 2 little handles to hold the case when opening and closing the zipper. The finishes are impeccable, with a full lining that's well held at the corners. It's clean and neat, with no visible seam allowances. The case is designed in 2 panels, with a seam at the bottom to enable you to use a fabric with a pattern or pile direction, as here with velvet. In fact, one panel will have the pattern or velvet in the right direction, and the other piece can be cut in the right direction too. Finally, you can add a decorative label, as I've done here. This model is designed for assembly on a conventional sewing machine. The edges are enclosed between the layers, so there's no need to overcast the edges of the fabric pieces. The case is designed to be easy to sew from just 2 pattern pieces, 1 piece for the fabric case, lining and interfacing, and 1 piece for the case's opening and closing handles. Sewing time is estimated at between 2 and 2.5 hours, including optional fabric quilting. You'll learn how to assemble a perfect lining, assemble a zipper, and make small opening and closing handles. As for the fabric selection, this pattern is designed for woven fabrics. That means fabrics that are not stretchable. You can make the case in cotton canvas such as gabardine or denim for a thick case, poplin, double gauze or corduroy to quilt, or already quilted fabrics. You can also use polyester canvas, of varying thickness, and coated canvas for easy care versions, as you can wash them with a sponge on the surface. Note that your outer material will be interfaced to give it shape, so you could even use a knit, like a sweat, or as here, a knitted velvet, as the interlining will fix the material and make the knit non-stretchable. For the lining, you can use cotton or polyester poplin for a simple sponge wash. You can also opt for mesh, which is a kind of net. You'll need an iron-on interfacing, which we recommend, such as wadding. Alternatively, you can use a fine fusible interfacing for an outer fabric such as coated canvas or heavy canvas. The case's strength and rigidity will depend on the fabric and interfacing combination. For example, if the outer fabric is a little soft, opt for a thick, fleecy interlining to add volume and hold to the case. On the other hand, a thicker fabric will require a lighter or softer interlining, depending on the desired effect. Note that if your fabric is already quilted, interlining is not necessary. In terms of supplies, you'll need a 25 centimeters non-separable zipper single slider, as shown here in metal, with the chain 25 centimeters long and the braid a little longer. Alternatively, you can opt for a nylon zipper to be cut to length by the tape measure. It will then need to be 30 centimeters long, and the spiral chain will need to be stopped on either side for a length of 25 centimeters. An optional decorative woven label can be sewn onto the case. As for other supplies, you'll need a needle adapted to the fabric. Here, universal, size 90 to 100, depending on the thickness of the fabric, classic polyester sewing thread, pins or plastic clips, sewing scissors, and small precision scissors. As for presser feet, you'll need 2, a classic presser foot and a special unilateral zipper foot, which will differ according to the sewing machine brand. We cut all our pieces in the grain line direction shown. We have 2 case pieces in outer fabric, the same pieces in lining, and finally in fusible wadding. I also have a handle piece in outer fabric. I only need 1, as it will be cut in half later. Let's prepare our pieces. We start by interfacing the wrong side of the 2 outer fabric pieces with fusible interfacing. Use a thin cotton poplin type fabric, or a damp cloth between the iron and the fabric, or interfacing if these fabrics are synthetic. If your fabric has a direction, mark the top of each piece in the outer fabric with a cross and textile pen, a notch in the edge or a thread passed through and closed with a knot. It's important to check the direction of the pattern or, as here, of the fabric, which is a velvet. The top of the piece can be found by stroking in the direction of the pile. We then mark 1 centimeter text at the bottom of one lining piece, using a cardboard ruler with 1 centimeter marks. We then repeat the operation on the other lining piece. Finally, we'll prepare the handles. Fold piece number 2 in the outer fabric wrong sides together, press and fold the edges back along their length towards the center fold to form a kind of bias binding. Optionally, if your fabric is thick, as is the case here with my velvet, it's advisable to recut one of the texts along its entire length to avoid excess thickness. Whatever the material, iron and, if necessary, pin to hold in place, then top stitch the lengths to 2 millimeters. It's stitched. I'd reposition the pins perpendicular to the seam so I could sew without worry. We'll now cut the strip into 2 pieces of equal length. The cuttage has a ridge, which isn't a problem as it's not usually visible. It will be hidden later when the handle is folded in half. We're keeping our 2 handles on the side for now. When it comes to zippers, you have several options. Use a close-end zipper at the right size, in this case 25 centimeters. Reduce the size of an available zipper, or use a zipper by the meter to cut at the right length. We have a video dedicated to shortening zippers on our YouTube channel. To start assembling the case, line up right sides together the 2 lower edges of the case pieces number 1 in outer fabric. Pin the edge, then stitch at 1 centimeter, with back and forth stitches at the beginning and end. That's stitched. Now press the seam open with a damp cloth between the interfacing and the ironed. As the bottom and top of the pieces have been clearly identified, with the stitching at the bottom of the case, the pile of the fabric will be symmetrical and therefore in the right direction on the front and back of the case. Here, the velvet pile will be in the same direction on the front and back of the case. If you're quilting a fabric, you'll need to mark the stitching according to the type of quilting you've chosen. Here, I'm showing you a parallel line quilt with 1 centimeter space between the lines, which I'm going to mark with chalk on my velvet. I'm using a patchwork ruler to trace the lines one after the other. All that remains is to stitch through the layers of fabric and wadding. I lengthened this stitch on my machine to a length of 3. We invite you to consult our video dedicated to all quilting techniques, freely accessible on the site and on YouTube. In general, we recommend quilting the fabric before cutting the pattern pieces. However, in the case of our case, we recommend joining the 2 fabric pieces before quilting. This ensures that the quilting stitches between the front and back are aligned and continuous. If, like me here with a corduroy, your material starts to curl slightly during top stitching, it's probably because your interfacing is coming slightly unstuck in places. In this case, we recommend that you slow down your top stitching speed. At the end of your line, stop sewing and iron your layers again, using a damp cloth as protection. In this way, your interfacing will adhere correctly and stabilize your outer fabric. If you'd like to personalize your case with a woven label, now's the time to place it on the outer fabric in the right side. Next, pin the label in place or hold it in place with a stitch of special textile glue. Finish by sewing around the edge with a stitch length of approximately 2.5. We'll now assemble the zippers. Mark the middles of the zipper and the tops of the fabric and lining cases. With right sides together, we'll align the top edge of the outer fabric case to a braid on the zipper. Match the middles, then pin first in the middle, then all the way through. Then align the right side of the lining's top edge along the wrong side of the braid. The zipper is sandwiched between the outer fabric and the lining. Replace the pins through the layers, then stitch through all 3 layers, 5 millimeters from the zipper spiral, using a special one-sided zipper presser foot. To stitch, move the needle close to the teeth of the zipper, about 5 millimeters. At the slider, leave the needle planted in the fabric, lift a presser foot and move the slider from the front to the back of the fabric, past the needle. Lower the presser foot and continue sewing. Fold the fabric and lining wrong sides together, press at the zipper seams and pin the layers. Extend the machine stitch to a length of 3. Top stitch the fabric and the interfacing and lining layers along the zipper, from 3 to 10 millimeters, depending on the desired finish. Here I'll top stitch at 1 centimeter. A final note, it's best to top stitch with the outer fabric visible under the presser foot of the machine. This ensures a beautiful finish on the outside of the case. That's it, top stitched. Now we'll repeat the operation with the other zipper braid, which will align with the top edge of the other fabric piece, then with the top edge of the other lining piece. Align the side edges too. Pin as you go, then stitch as shown above. Once again, fold the lining under the fabric. Iron by opening the zipper. Pin and top stitch along the zipper. This is the result. Now, with right sides together, we'll align the lower lining edges by unfolding the tucks. Pin, then stitch at 1 centimeter, leaving a 15 centimeters opening to turn the case inside out at the end. I stitched the beginning and then the end of the edge, leaving my opening in the center. Let's take care of the side handles. Fold one handle in half and stitch its end into the seam allowances, at a distance of approximately 8 millimeters. Repeat with the other handle. Bring the two braids of the zipper as close together as possible at one end, and pass them under the presser foot of the machine to hold them in place with a few stitches back and forth in the seam allowances. Here's the result with the two braids held close together. We repeated the operation on the other end of the zipper. Now place a handle on the right side of the outer fabric at one end of the zipper, aligning the edges together. Pin and hold in place by stitching through the layers in the seam allowances. Repeat on the other side of the zipper with the other zipper handle, as I've already done here. There, it's stitched. Now close the zipper and align the sides with right sides together, centering on the zipper. Pin the fabric sides together with right sides together, then the lining sides together, also taking the outer fabric into the pinning. It's possible that the sides with the zipper are slightly wider than the sides without, which may give the impression of a slight gap. This may be due to the zippers having been stitched a little too far from the spiral, or the two braids not having been brought close enough edge to edge before the poles were fitted. This doesn't matter. Just trim the slight excess to align the two sides together. Before placing the pins at the zipper, reach inside to open the zipper, or use the opening left at the bottom of the lining to open it. All that's left is to stitch 1 centimeter on each side through all the layers. As far as stitching is concerned, there are several layers to pass through at the zipper. It is therefore advisable to slow down the sewing speed in order to get through the layers without difficulty. That's it, stitched on both sides. If you haven't opened the zipper before, run your fingers through the opening left in the lining or through the open corners, then partially open the zipper. We'll now close the cutouts left in the corners. To do this, align the two outer fabric edges with right sides together on the diagonal, then stretch the work by placing your index fingers at the corners to lay the edges flat. Then pin. Do the same with the lining, deforming the case to align the edges of the fabric and lining corners. Finish by pinning the edges together. Repeat the operation on the other three corners, deforming the case little by little. It's a bit tricky, so take your time. Stitch through all 4 layers at 1 centimeter intervals, stopping at the beginning and end of the seam. Of course, repeat the operation on the other 3 corners. All 4 corners are now sewn. Now we'll turn the work inside out through the opening left at the bottom of the lining. Start by bringing out the right side of the lining, then position the lining inside the outer fabric case, passing through the zipped opening, which must also be open. Mark corners and edges, using a point or punch if necessary. All that remains is to open the case and pin the decks at the bottom of the lining left open. Next, you can close the opening with slip stitches by hand or machine top stitch at 2 millimeters. For my part, I'll use slip stitches. I stitch on the fold of one edge, then stitch exactly opposite on the fold of the other edge. Then I shift the stitch by about 3 millimeters and press opposite, and so on. And now your Venice case is complete. If you like this video, don't hesitate to like it and subscribe to our channel. We can't wait to see your versions. So head over to Instagram with the hashtag Ikatee Venice. And see you soon at Ikatee.